Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MAHRP's HR Perspective Share. This is our seventh segment of the seventh series. We have a very special guest with us today, and my apologies that we took us a little bit of time to get this started. Usually, we like to get things started on time and finish on time. We're having a bit of tech issue and still not able to connect to Facebook, but I think it will connect along the way. For those who obviously are not able to join us on Zoom, we'll also make the recording available. MAHRP's HR Best Practice Share session is one of the most favorite session, and we had a session a couple of weeks ago, and this is the next segment that was started called the HR Perspective Share. And so far, we have had six guests, including the vice president of our country and hoteliers, HR professionals. And today, we have a very special guest with us, Ali Ihusaan, was the former captain of MNDF and currently the chief executive officer of Happy Market. The objective of HR Perspective Share is to get the opinion and the views of various leaders, whether you're a business leader or somebody who manages a lot of people directly or indirectly, or someone who doesn't probably have anything to do with directly managing people, but you're managing a business that generates results for a lot of stakeholders. And that's the reason why we chose our guest today. And also today is a very special day, and I want to just thank from MAHRP and also for all the HR leaders and business leaders for actually working on to create a culture of wellness and well-being. Today is the World Mental Health Awareness Day, which is obviously becoming a huge issue in our nation, also across the globe. And obviously, we as leaders, we need to make sure that we create a healthy working force, which also includes specifically focusing on the mental well-being. And mental well-being can only be stressed, or it can only be enforced in the organizations if we focus on making sure that there is less stressful culture, make sure we look after our people, we provide enough care, guidance, support our people. So with that, I would like to give a little bit of introduction of Ihsan. I'm sure many of you on the call knows who Ihsan is, but I think it would be appropriate to give a formal introduction. Ihsan and I know each other quite well. Years ago, when I was a senior in the cadet, he used to be, back then a junior cadet, but I knew at one point he will definitely do something greater than what he was doing, and my instinct was quite right over the years. He spent almost 4 years at the world's famous U.S. military academy at the West Point, which not many models get the opportunities, but when you get the opportunity, you make best out of it. And he did two bachelor's degrees there, one focusing on information technology and the other one in military arts and science. And after that, he also completed an MBA program with the famous Singapore Nanyang Business School, and spent over 7 years with the Maldives National Defense Force, and his last rank was the captain. And then he voluntarily left the organization, and now currently working for the past 3 years or more with Happy Market as the chief executive officer. I'm sure the name of Happy Market is not new to any one of us, as one of the largest private business enterprise in the Maldives. So with that introduction, Ihsan, would you like to just say a few words before I go into the direct questions that I have set for you today? And to all the viewers, if you could just say a few words as a first start.
Okay, excellent. So with the technical difficulties, also, I guess we are on. So thank you, Hussein, for inviting me over, and I thank your leadership in the Association of HR Professionals. And I have been following you guys, and I think what an asset it is for the industry. I think it will go a long way, and it has a lot to offer in terms of developing the human capital of the Maldives. Um, Going back, I think to be exact, 20 years back we met, Hussein and I, and he was the senior most cadet of back then. It used to be called the Southern Secondary School. It evolved to be Muhibbuddin School, and then later on again became Sharafuddin School, I think. So I started my cadet career with him as the person who we all looked up to. So it's it's an honor to be here on the same stage as you are today, and sharing with you. Um, I have spent nearly 7 years of active and total of 11 years in the Maldives National Defense Force, and I think joining the private sector, though, was one of the most difficult decisions. I had done it in 2017, and now continuing on in the private sector, and I think we have a lot to talk about. So I'll go with you and follow your lead on this. Okay, thank you for inviting
Yeah,
me.
yeah, very good. Thank you, and to all the participants that are that join us on Zoom. Thank you very much, and you can keep on posting the questions that you would like me to ask Ihsan. And I see that we do still have an issue where our Facebook is not connected, so we'll still keep on trying as we go. This is a 45 minutes of conversation. And along the way, if you connect Facebook, I think we'll be very lucky. But otherwise, right after this, I'll make sure that this gets posted actually to our Facebook page so viewers can view and obviously get inspired. And as I said at the beginning to all the participants, our objective is really to inspire you with a story of success and also failures. And obviously we all get through different stages where we have different situations. And the format how it works is that we, as a moderator, I will ask questions and Ihsan will share his stories, but you can also ask any questions. So you can go to the chat box, post a question, we'll be happy to respond to you. So, Ihsan, my first question to you is that, like I mentioned in your introduction, you have had a wonderful journey. Being even from the early stage of school when I saw you, and I'm sure many of your school mates and classmates must have seen that you had that leadership in you, like you love leading people and perhaps taking people to a better place where they were. And then you went to US Military Academy at the West Point, which is rated as one of the best military academy, and rated by some of the best education institutions in the world. And I know you also had the opportunity to meet back then the President Obama at the inauguration of his pictures, and we were so proud as a nation. And I've seen many articles. And then you had a great time in the military. You trained a lot of people. Then you joined the private sector, and now currently you are the chief executive officer of hundreds of employees in Happy Market. And there has been many great things happen in Happy Market since you have joined too, and we're seeing it on the news. And so we see you as a leader that loves serving people, looking after people. My first question to you is that, based on what you have seen, what are some of the attributes that has helped to become who you are today?
Oh, great question. So I'll try to summarize all these years into maybe 5 different points that I want you guys to take away from this. Okay, number one thing is, I think from the beginning, from when I was as early as I could remember, maybe 6 years old, going to school in UKG when I started. My parents were the biggest influence that I had in my life, and I think my mom's not accepting the minimum or the bare minimum standards and pushing me forward was one of the strongest things that has still inspired me to go after success. I can remember I used to get out of 5 subjects, 100 in all 4 subjects and a 95 in practical arts. It used to be my first grade couple of terms results. So my mom would ask me every single time, why 95 on this practical art? She never talked about why and how good, and please keep on with the hundreds. But she always says, okay, great, you got hundreds on all 4, but why 95 on practical art? So she was not happy with that one subject, and that also being, I thought I would never be a person who would be drawing in my life. But at that time, she didn't go for that 95 also. So I think the first thing, the most important attribute that I want to share with you that I had and I had influenced from was the never accepting minimums from my parents that I carried on with me. Even now, I would call my mom and say, Mom, look, I have done this. And she would say, when are you going for your PhD? So there's always a dream that she keeps showing me, and then I go after it to achieve it. So that's the first thing. You all who are parents now, you need to have that continuous influence, the positive reinforcement, and the sense of direction and sense of achievement instilled in your children from the very early on, so they make sure they maintain that guide rails that you set for. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, as individuals, as people who want to achieve, our main focus should always be to maintain a goal and then start achieving it. I'll share with you a story. This was back in 2006 when I was fortunate to go to the number one military academy in the world, which Hussein pointed out, West Point, or the U.S. Military Academy. My first day there, I remember there were over 1,000 U.S. soldiers or leaders or officers soon to be, who we call cadets at that point. And most of them, when we set in height order, I would go past even the shortest of the shortest, and I was very tiny, from just like our islands. The guys and girls who were there were either the number one, number two, or the number three of most high schools in the United States. So to begin with, even I was out competed. These guys knew exactly what they were going after. They had the language competency. They were aware of West Point for years and years. Some of their parents, grandparents have fought in world wars, and they were inspired by them. And I was there out from the blue, not knowing what to expect, and people were getting on my face. I want to share a picture at this point of the first day, the first couple of days I was there. This was, I think, if I remember correctly, the first month I was there. Okay, I think you guys are seeing this, right? So this picture, this was me and on the very early stages of my West Point terms. Was 2006, somewhere I think around June. Even the hat is crooked, you can see. But the guys I saw, he was the commander of the Cadet Summer Training Regiment. This guy had lots of bars on his shoulders and fully decorated, and he inspired me a lot. And I thought, man, what a nice and what a good achievement would that be to become him one day. And that's the first point where I set a goal at West Point. I thought I will be this guy one day, and I wanted to be him. So I set my sails from that day on for a 3-year target. After 3 years, to be in his level, which is, they call him a cadet captain, who is a regimental commander. And come 2009, in May, I was set in several boards where we had multiple interviews and selection processes, through which I was selected to be the commander of Summer Garrison Regiment, which took over the command of the entire Corps of Cadets. So I was appointed as a commander of over 3,400 U.S. Soldiers, and among them were leaders mostly. And this is a picture of that day. So you can see, obviously, the difference, definitely a smile on the face, which is much more wider. But more than that, I had the replica of that person's uniform that I set to achieve about 3 years back. So my point to you is, for us as people who get inspired by others, it's very important to set goals and then focus on those and then go after it and achieve it. And like Hussein have mentioned, I had the best opportunity to meet the back then the commander-in-chief of the United States and President Obama. And this last picture, which I will share with you, this was the end results of the goals that I set there. To be able to stay in the same formation, stay next to the President of the United States, which we normally saw on CNN, and was always a dream for most of us Maldivians, even myself back then. So I think that is the second point I'll share with you about goal setting. The third is the never quit attitude that you have to have. I remember in 2010 and 11 when I came back from West Point, I had a huge injury in my leg. I had a blocked artery on my right legs, and I couldn't even walk for 500 meters without stopping. So I went to the best doctors available in Maldives and in the region, and most of them told me that this is the end of your military career. And they said that you could not run anymore. I said I had to run at least 2 miles in under 15 minutes to be able to be in the force. And some of the doctors told me, well, you will be lucky if you can walk about 2 miles in your life, in the rest of your life. So that was a very difficult moment in my life where I just prepared to be one of the best soldiers and officers that we could train, and then now I have to quit because of my health issues. So I went back. I went to a doctor. I went to Thailand. I got a surgery done, and to my surprise, it didn't fix anything. I went back to India, found a doctor again, and this guy gave me a light of hope. He said, "Okay, I can have you run, but for sure you will not be able to compete in major events, or you can't go for other further training." Now, mind that I had a training lined up. This was after 4 years in the States. I came back, and then I had the next training, which is the officer basic course in Quantico, Virginia, where I was supposed to go with the US Marines for a 6 months training. And the minimum requirement to join that training, I remember, was you had to run 4.8 kilometers, which is 3 miles, in under 27 minutes. And after my surgery with this Indian doctor, I was able to run, and I tried to run, and I got through this 4.8 kilometers in 30 minutes. And I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to cut through this requirements. And I walked quite hard. I pushed for about 2.5 to 3 weeks, nonstop training. And then I went sub 27, and I was 26:30 when I was at that point. And then I applied, and I was able to go to the States back for training. And I joined the US Marines training at the basic school in Quantico, Virginia. And on day one, we had a physical test, and that test was that 3 miles run, and a bunch of other stuff. And I was confident that I could clear it under 27 minutes. Um, but then we started running around 1.5 miles into the run, nearly 2 miles into the run. I saw some friends, some of my course mates, they have already finished, and they were coming to get me because they knew I had trouble. And among them were also some of the girls who were in the training with me. And I felt very embarrassed because I was among the last guys. At the same time, even everybody was coming to get me. So although motivating, I was very unhappy with myself. That was one of the times where I thought, well, this was a bad decision. I should have quit. But then I again thought about my mom, thought about the country and the hopes that the country has put already in me, and I had to push forward. So throughout the training, I pushed more than anybody else because I had to recover at the same time I had to gain. And then by Allah's grace, at the end of the training, I was able to run a sub 21 minute 3 miler, and that is dedication, and that is your attitude of never quitting. So my third takeaway for all of you would be your attitude of never quitting and your attitude of continuously going after it until you achieve that results will take you places. The fourth one is you have to have people who you look up to in an organization, in wherever, in the society that you live in, that motivates you and that keeps you guided. When I was in school, for example, I started following Hussein as one of the guys who was the senior under officer of, or the senior most cadet of Muhibbuddin School at the time. And I got inspired by it. When I went to the US, I followed many general officers who were at that time commanders of various regions, to include General Petraeus. He was the Central Command commander and he was the leader who was commanding the Iraq war at that time. He was also a graduate of West Point. So I always had those role models that I looked up to. And when time comes where things get rough and things get tough, I always look up to them, and I keep thinking, what would they do in these situations? And then I kept pushing, and those role models always inspire me, and then push me forward when things get very tough. The last thing, the attitude that I want to share with you is pride. Uh, One of the things that kept me moving throughout my career until now is the pride that I take in this country, the pride that this country will have on me, the pride that I have belonging to my family, and that the pride that my family takes in me. And also the simple, small successes that I get, it makes me very proud of myself. So I think that pride that you take will also take you places. It was always one of the most joyous things to do, to accomplish something and call my mom back home and then tell her, see, I have done this. And the joy that I hear in the phone call from her or in her eyes, that's accomplishment. And that keeps you moving forward. So these are the five major things, Afif, that kept me moving throughout until today.
Yeah, wow. It's a very, I'm sure all our participants must be, thrilled to hear these stories. In fact, to all our participants on Zoom, could you go to the chat box and write, did you just enjoy those, stories that he shared? Because there's five key points that he shared. For every story, there was a learning point. Yes, go to the chat box and write yes if you enjoyed those stories. Well, just to summarize those points, I think your point around having people that you have to look up for always, role model, and the attitude of never giving up. I just love the story, and also I love the story where the other participants, they actually came to look for you. And of course, I mean, I've not actively participating in none of those trainings, but over the years of studying, I've visited some of their training facilities, and just incredible the attitude there. And also, you mentioned that you didn't want to set for a substandard, so you always wanted to do something better. And then you mentioned about when you saw the general or the leader of your team, and when you first joined, and you said you want to be him like him one day, and then in no time you were leading a team. And the last point, I think, which is very important, that taking pride in what we do, which is obviously usually other people see that through the energy that we often, portray. So wonderful there. Now, on the second question, obviously you did two bachelor's degrees in the military academy, and you did an MBA with the Nanyang Business School. And I'm sure and also I see you often now speaks in or various platforms, and we see that you as somebody who spends a lot of effort and energy in personal growth and development. Now, what's your take on this? How important do you think is that for us as leaders and anyone to continuously keep growing ourselves and developing ourselves? What's your take on that?
Oh, excellent. So I take life and the challenges or the things that are in front of us as an escalator that keeps going down. So if you imagine yourself on an escalator and say you have developed yourself, you have joined a career, you have joined some company or an organization, and then you're climbing on that escalator. If you stay that way, you will find yourself going down every single second. So continuous development is the key. You have to have continuous development in your life. I would share with you seven things that I do to make sure that I maintain progressing with the rest of the world and the organization, so we could be competent enough. Number one is obviously your education. Uh, I went to West Point thinking that I would major or get my degree in military arts and science. No, that was decided. Part of me always loved IT, and I always wanted to do something in that field also. But I will tell you, it was a very self-motivated decision to go for 2 degrees, because I had the choice where I could live a very easy life in the academy and go for 1 degree, just like majority of the students there. But I thought, number one, I was already there, so why not? Why not go for 2? The second thing was very extrinsically motivated, because at that time, the government of Maldives, they offered extra salary. I think it was 30% more for the second degree that you could earn. So I was like, well, this will be a good opportunity to earn some bucks also. So for both these reasons, I went for 2 degrees. But I can tell you, it was one of the toughest choices that left me very painful 4 years to follow, or the rest of the 2 years to follow, because I had many more classes than the rest of my classmates, but the same commitments as other requirements, militarily and physically. So it was tougher twice, and I had a lot of study hours more than others. So, well, anyway, well, I came back. I found out they got rid of the regulation that said you can get more than 30%. So regardless of 2 or 3 or 4 degrees, by the time I joined the government or the forces, you were, regardless of the number of degrees, you had the same qualification, same level, and you get paid the same amount. So that was a bummer. Anyway, it was a misleading, and I feel I was very much betrayed. But well, guess what? I was more informed on IT than the rest of my colleagues. I was more informed on the military arts and science than my colleagues. So it's good knowledge to have. Um, when I initially applied for Maldives National Defense Force in 2005, back then they said if you had 3 passes in A levels, you could get one promotion, which is lance corporal rank. So I was very happy. So I applied. By the time the application process finished, they said, no, actually now the minimum requirement is A level, so you're not getting any rank. So again, I felt, man, this academic requirement just keeps coming up on me. So I came back from the training with the Marines, and then I thought the specialist degree is not enough. So I went ahead and went for a master's degree. Why I did an MBA was because, number one, I believe any senior leader, regardless of your type of organization that you work in, you have to have the understanding of economics, the understanding of accounting, the understanding of bookkeeping, and basically how to manage finances and marketing. All these are relevant fields that you need some sort of expertise or some sort of information, theoretical knowledge on. And the MBA helped me to gain that. And when I came back, I was on the upper tier of the knowledge hub within the service that I was doing. So that helped me a lot to go forward. But I feel now, again, it's time for me to go up another notch. So I have already started seeking for a PhD opportunity, and I'm hoping to start my studies online in this January. And I feel, number one, your education has to go on continuously. It can be formal, it could be informal. Regardless, you have to educate yourself to be competent in this world. Number two, you need to be relevant in the organization that you are in. Somebody could give you a set of tasks, what we call the job description, to do. But if at the end of the day, if you are just doing what is required of your job description, guess what? You are not very relevant to that institution. You are just pushing the amount of tasks that are required of you. But even if you're not there, they could always bring in someone to push that task for the company or for the organization that you're working on. But if you make yourself more relevant than what they are requiring you to be, you're just creating more opportunities for yourself. And you're creating more reasons for your superiors to have you in the organization. And that helps you be sustainable in the organization. So when I was in school, I always tried to find activities to do. If there was nothing, we would just paint the walls even. We would go and rewire the classroom sometimes in our island schools. Any event that the school had, I was part of it. I went to the States, was in West Point. There was a club called International Cadets Club, and there was about 50 international officers and 4,000 over US officers there. So the 50 of international officers got together, and we always talked about our countries, the defense segments of our countries. We shared knowledge from different countries together. I became the president of that club, and we contributed to the rest of the community a lot during those years. So I always tried to do that extra piece. Uh, when I went to the academy, they had some area for Muslims to pray, but we were able to talk to the superiors, and we were to build the first mosque in the U.S. military academy. So in my watch, we were able to maintain a structure that we called the mosque from there, and we had regular Friday prayers for the few Muslims, about 25 to 30 Muslims who were there, and we would get together and talk about our faiths and to maintain our religion strong at that point in time. So that was the other thing. So the relevance and the additional effort that you're bringing to the team makes you a more important, significant member in the team, and that gives you opportunities to grow within the organization. The third is the social circle that you maintain in an organization. You don't have to be friends with all, but you should be able to have a decent conversation, non-work related, with any member of the team that you belong to, or any member of the organization that you belong to. You should become, or try to become, the person that everybody comes for a good discussion. They know you have some sort of knowledge, they know you will give your time, they know they can count on you. So you got to be that person who has that social influence on the rest of the group. The fourth thing is you have to read, because the content around us is always changing. So I make it a habit to read articles, to read current affairs, to read books about people, and just broaden your knowledge. If I see something that I don't know, I would always Google it. Then you follow the links that are probably knowledge worthy, and then you read about it. Maybe at least spend about 10, 20, 15 minutes every day to gain something new. And then guess what? You at some point will be armed enough to use that piece of knowledge for your advantage in your performance in your job. The fifth thing is you have to be a person who looks out for others in the organization. It cannot be about yourself. So when I was in trainings, when I was in the force, even now, I always try to see what can I do for the rest of the team, and then together how can we grow. So you have to be able to identify those that are a bit weaker in the organization and be able to commit yourself to make them as strong as you are. I always, when I commanded forces in MNDF, I always tried to find time for those soldiers who were struggling physically, who were struggling financially, to advise them how to manage their personal finances. And also, it's sometimes to just have time and talk to them, because some of them are in need of psychological support because of various things that are going on in their life. So you just cannot take your role in an organization as a 8-hour job where you're disconnected immediately after the 8 hours. No, you need to be part of the team that takes responsibility of the rest of the group for 24 hours you are there. And that makes you a relevant person, that makes you somebody who looks out for others, and that eventually makes you somebody who others look up to. So you need to be that guy who others look up to. Number six, and one of the most important parts of growing in an organization, depends on your ability to accomplish missions, your ability to deliver results, and your ability to make sure the tasks that you are given are 100% accomplished or achieved. So when you do that continuously, if you are able to knock out those tasks on your task list, then people see you as a reliable person who is good for the organization, and the organization can count on you. So all these aspects makes you a person who is able to accomplish missions. In my career in MNDF, or in my services now in Happy Market, whatever task that I'm tasked with, I try to accomplish them to the fullest of my ability. If I cannot accomplish something that I've been tasked to, I cannot sleep well. It keeps me up all night, and I try to get it done ASAP. So don't pen things. Be a guy or girl who is accomplishing missions as it comes to you. And the last thing is you have to be a reliable person for both your bosses and your juniors. Your juniors will come with issues to you, and if you take them as your own issues and take ownership of those problems and help to solve them, it could be administrative issues in the organization, it could be operational issues, it could be professional issues, it could be personal issues. But you have to be able to address them as a reliable person. At the same time, if you are able to add value to your superior, for example, he is struggling to achieve something or he is trying to do something in a certain manner, and you are able to do it in a different way, entirely different manner, and deliver better results and be more efficient in doing so, guess what? Soon your superiors will be relying on you in much more important and much more significant tasks, and soon you will find yourself sitting in much larger tables and contributing more towards the organization, which essentially is growing. So these are the 7 points, Hussein, that I wanted to share with you guys in terms of growth and personal growth in organization.
Yeah, it's a great list that you have shared, and I just want to highlight one specific point that you mentioned there, which is stay relevant. And I think that point kind of links with some of the things you have mentioned about continuously reading, and also giving time for the other people, because you can only be relevant to your organization if you spend time with other people and listen to them. And I like the point that you mentioned around how you help your other colleagues in terms of managing their finance, and also psychologically supporting them in tough and difficult times. I think if we are fortunate to be in a better situation than other people, we should actually help the other people to get it at least take them with us. And some
Yes.
great stories you have shared there. So thank you very much. And I'm glad to receive some questions. There's already so far 3 questions. So at this stage, I'm just gonna take a question from one of our participant. I see that we already have question from Nahid, and also from Aisha. So I'm going to take Aisha Hussein Muhammad's question. And she wrote here, as we talk about mental health, our community now very much emphasizes not on pushing kids like the way we were pushed. So what is your advice on how to push our kids in a positive manner to be the best version of themselves, so at least them know will what this will be beneficial for them later in their lives? What is your take on that question, Ihsan?
Okay, great question, I think. Number one, I think you have to identify the stage of the development of the kids. Uh, Certain stages are there where you can't, or simply it's not possible to influence them by showing them what's out there to gain, because they just simply won't see it. So those are the places where I think with small reinforcements, small motivations, you have to push them harder. Yeah, I'm sure we wouldn't encourage the methods used by our parents back then, because you could see a lot of motivating tools like the good old broomsticks and all kinds of other tools that are lying around in the home that your my mom used to motivate me with. I say motivation because immediately I will start doing what she asked me to do. But I think positive reinforcement is the key these days. Number one, if the students or your kids or your subordinates are able to see the positives in what you're trying to get them to do, show them. Show them why it's important. Show them why it's relevant. Tell them what's in it for them, and show them real life living examples of people who have achieved and who are successful because of those reasons. Don't compare, but tell them this is somebody who you can look up to, and then try to be that guy. But don't say, okay, look, you're nothing compared to this person. See how much he is achieving. No, it's all about your attitude of how you translate this problem to your child, or how you translate this problem to your juniors who are working with you. Don't pressure them mentally, but show them a positive environment where they can relate to, and then they will get self motivated to go there. I will say you have to have a self check on how much pressure are you putting on the individual. So we call it maintain a low heat situation. So you have to maintain some sort of heat underneath so that person continuously keeps pushing. You have to help them in areas where they are not able to carry the entire weight. If you imagine a gym where there is a guy who is spotting for the other person who is pushing harder, in those instances, the person who is pushing should be there with the hands out, ready to support when it's necessary. And then once he achieved that, you have to acknowledge that too. Oftentimes, we always point out shortcomings in kids, but I would say you have to point out shortcomings in privately in a separate place, and then make sure that the kid is focusing on you and able to listen when you are saying these things. At the same time, when you acknowledge, when you say someone is successful, say it out in public for your kid. Say it out maybe when you come out of school, right next to the friends. Tell them, I'm proud of you. Bring him to your home, and then celebrate the success of that kid. Even small success matters. A child who is struggling to pass a subject, your target could be getting an A plus. But if that kid passes, gets a C, gets a D, and pass, that's something to celebrate. And that joy of celebration is going to inspire that kid to do more. I have failed so many times in my life. If I had to write books about my failures, I could go on and on about how to not be this guy. But every one of those instances taught me many lessons. Sometimes I had people helping me to learn the lessons, other times I was mature enough to learn those lessons myself. But you have to let your kids fail and then allow them to win over those failures and develop themselves, but celebrate those small successes. Okay, I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, I think it's a good share in there, and I think the key point that we should take from there is that I think accept the kids as who they are, and we shouldn't really be comparing them with others, and encourage and support them. When it comes to their achievements, or even if they go through a tough time, right? And obviously, no one is gonna get great without experiencing failures. And I think at times we as parents have been a bit tough on ourselves because if our kid is not performing, we I think take it too hard.
Yes.
Then at times we have to put that on, um, on the kids. And the community has changed now, so we have to adapt ourselves. I think the times that when we were studying and we were growing up back then, what is happening in our environment and the ecosystem, things have changed quite rapidly. So I want to take another question from what I prepared for, and then we'll take a participant's question. So you must have met some really wonderful leaders. I mean, you name most of the couple of people that you met during your time at the West Point Military Academy. And you must have seen a lot of people as role models. And they must have given many advice, in terms of how to lead, how to serve, how to take decisions. So, what is the best advice you have ever received from many people that you have met, and an advice that you're still living up to that?
Excellent. Um, so when I look up to role models, I don't see number one their status or who they are, what they have gone through, but rather I see what exactly they represent. They could be, I mean, in the society, no one, but they represent something bigger than themselves. So I will talk about three things, three takeaways that has helped me a lot in my career, especially in leadership positions. This number one was actually shared by a sergeant in Maldives National Defense Force. He's a very old man. His name is Sergeant Hanif. Yeah, and he's very old. He one time told me, "Sir, you are in the at the age of my grandson almost, but still, I like one thing about you because you listen to me." And the one very important takeaway that I have had from him, amongst the many conversations I had with him, was he asked me to get out of my office more often than I used to. And I will tell you, even now, even today, that's helping me a lot. Number one, when you get out of your own cabin, when you get out of your own office, you get the reality check on the influence you are having on that organization. In your emails, in your books, in your numbers, you could see that you are having huge impact on the organization. But if you don't get out and see how your decisions are impacting the down the line the staff that are working for you, I don't think you will have a very clear idea of exactly what you're doing and what the organization is doing. So when I get out of my office, I go and see how people are doing. I go and experience the processes that people are doing. I sometimes, while being the CEO of Happy Market, I would sometimes get out of my office, change my clothes, go down and start loading vehicles sometimes. And it helps me to gain that perspective of a laborer in the company who is going through the tough times. I remember during the COVID-19 situation, as we were locked down, I walked up to this tea jetty one day, and they were loading to send goods to Kurdufushi. And there was a 40-feet container, and the container was obviously powered on. The temperature was close to I think, although open, it was close to a zero. And the goods in there were supposed to be frozen at minus 18. And my expectation was our staff should be working faster than that because I needed the goods out much quicker. But it wasn't happening. So I went there, I started walking myself with them. And I noticed when you walk into a 40-feet container at nearly 0 degrees centigrade, you run out of breath. When you are carrying heavy cartons of chicken or whatsoever at minus 18, your fingers start to freeze. And it's just a very tough environment to work physically. So if I was in the office in my comfort zone, I could have never imagined. So I reoriented my processes and now be able to do that job better because I got out of my office and observed. The second thing is, I think I highlighted already about answering the last question that we talked about. That is, you have to celebrate people's successes in common environment amongst the rest of the group. And then when somebody doesn't perform, you have to guide them in private. You talk about somebody's failures in private, but you always talk about people's success in public. So I continuously get it from many leaders who I have followed. They always do it. And that's the most beautiful thing that I have learned. That when you're at your low, when you just fail doing something, the worst thing that a leader could come and do is to say amongst the rest of the group that you failed. Sometimes you need to hear that, but most of the time, it is very advisable. And my advice to you all will be take it to private, take it to your rooms, take it to your closed doors, and then talk to them. And just don't tell the people that they failed. Tell them why they failed and how they could be successful from your baseline knowledge and your experiences. And the last takeaway on this segment that I have got from one of the leaders that I followed was make decisions with the people in mind. When you make decisions, know what your people are going through to implement those decisions. When you make a plan and ask to execute, check what the people are doing, see what the resources they have, see what you have empowered them with before asking them to do so. So one time I remember it was in Happy Market. I promised one of the resorts that we will deliver their goods by the next afternoon. And I asked our boat, okay, go ahead, do it. The weather forecast that day was terrible. And the captain didn't want to say no because it was the first time I personally asked him to do it. You know, we almost lost the vessel that day and the people. So Always know what you're asking your staff to do before you decide, and put yourself in their shoes. Think from their perspective before you decide. Um, it may not be always life and death situations, but it's always good to consider the end results of your decisions and how it goes through down the line when your staff are executing, so you know to make informed and very reliable decisions in your office. Okay, so those are the key, I think, 3 points of it that I want to share with you guys.
Yes, and one of my favorite point that you just shared is, which is something that I often speak also to our HR community, that HR, being HR or leading teams doesn't mean that it is always sitting down in our office anymore. Those days are gone. It's, of course,
Exactly.
we have to balance and integrate that, because there will be times where we will need to sit down and focus and look through the numbers and make decisions. But most importantly, being out there and seeing what our people does, and walk around with them, and your example of, and I've seen a couple of comments also on social platforms of when the times you spend time with your team. And I want to go back to a question related specifically to your current role as the chief executive of Happy Market. And what we saw that was, even when the when the pandemic hit us, that your organization rise to the occasion. There were some bold decisions that you made in terms of continuously delivering the goods that you used to deliver. You did not discontinue any supply because you had challenges. You rise to those challenges, and I'm sure that your learning in military must have empowered you to make those decisions. What are some of the people related HR best practices you're currently following in your organization that other organizations can perhaps see as a success, and as fit they could adapt? Maybe if you can share a couple of them relating to the people segment within your organization, and maybe some changes you brought since you joined. And because we see that your team seems to be more happier since you came in. I'm not saying before they weren't happy. We always saw that Happy Market was a leading organization. In our business in resorts, we used to deal a lot, so we know how your employees treat with us, and we can always rely, like many other private companies. So if you can talk us a little bit about your organizational culture and what practices you follow, that would help us.
Excellent. So let me get the record straight first. Okay. So Happy Market is already, as a business group, over 30 years of service in the community. I joined Happy Market Trading Company as its general manager, and then later took on the group CEO's role in 2017. At that time, they were almost at 25-year mark in their services. I have learned that this organization is one of the few organizations in the Maldives which staff did not want to leave, and always staff wanted to be part of. And part of the reason, obviously, was the good compensation they gave, and belonging to a team that values each other. And I think those were the two key things that I saw. But I had a lot of opportunities, obviously, to develop this team to take him to the next level. Number one thing I did was assigning responsibility to smaller levels. That is, earlier we had, let's say, a warehouse manager. Under him, there would be 35 to 40 laborers. In my trainings, I was always told that a leader can actively take charge of only about 5 to 6 individuals directly 24/7. If you're supposed to be responsible for 24/7 performance of an individual, you can only look after about 5 to 6 max. So the key is to make teams of teams of teams. So you have to have an individual who has a leader, and that leader has to have another leader, that leader has to have another leader. And then you have to have effective communications and chain of command that allows you to achieve the organization's goals through that teams of teams. So the concept of teams that we have implemented here is we divided those laborers also to groups. Say, for example, one delivery vehicle. The leader would be the driver. Under him would be 3 laborers or 4 laborers. In a shop, there will be one foreman who is a senior laborer. Under him, there will be junior 3 or 4 laborers. So like that, we broke down, and then immediately there was productivity increase. Immediately they were taking responsibility. A lot of times we have this assumption that a worker, a junior worker from Bangladesh or from India or from Nepal could not lead, but give them opportunity and they will surprise you. You make them leaders and they will surprise you. So that was the first thing. We broke down the teams of teams, and then we gave them responsibility, and then I held them accountable. I made my department heads, I gave them individual responsibilities, and then asked them, okay, go out there, these are my expectations, and then go for it. I don't get in their bubble and then try to disturb them throughout the day, but rather I have a pulse on their team. I check their pulse, and then always I give feedback when it's necessary. Unnecessary feedback is also demotivating sometimes. I don't need feedback if I don't need it at the moment, but sometimes you do need it. The second thing is, don't over supervise your teams. Here, I give them free reign to work. I allow them to go after their segments of the responsibilities they have in the organization, and then feedback to me once or twice a week at max, depending on the sensitivity of the department that you have. The third thing is you have to allow people to fail. Say somebody just failed and cost the company a few thousand dollars or few thousand rupiah. Doesn't mean you immediately fire the person. I'll tell you, each one of your staff will fail at some point, but you have to calculate and allow them to fail in areas where they could learn without very severe cost to the organization. If they are in a trajectory where they are going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, then you got to intervene and stop them before they fail and cost each other, the company and himself, too much. But intervene when necessary. Otherwise, allow people to fail so they develop and gain the new perspectives of life. Number four is training. You have to train individuals, and then you have to train them as teams. So I sometimes bring in my department heads. I walk with them. I guide them through the problems they are facing. At certain times, I will gain the whole department and then guide them through the problems they have. So you have to train them in line while at work, and also you have to get them opportunities for formal training and education. The next thing is education. Null opportunities should be allowed to those that are going after it. Say, for example, if somebody doesn't want to go for formal education, you can't force them because he's part of your team. You just can't force them. But if somebody, although doesn't need that particular education to perform the job they are doing, but they are very interested in broadening their horizon and going for further education, I always make it a point to allow them to do it while working for me. We find ways, we find some sort of leeways within the organization's regulations to be able to allow them to do that. And when we can financially support, we do it. And the last thing I have is specifically for HR professionals. Your role is a multifunctional role as a HR manager or HR person. Your role is defined by many aspects of the organization. For example, one of the key things that I want my HR to look after is the morale, the welfare, and the recreation of the team that you do work with. The second thing is training and educating the team that you work with. And then the third thing is enforcement, both positive and the negatives that come up. Say, if somebody is late to work, you have to enforce it. You have to tell them. You have to find a way where they can be more accountable. The second, if somebody is very punctual to work every single day, you have to find a way to enforce that too. So there's positive reinforcements where if somebody is coming to work, one of the things we did was we introduced an allowance called early bird allowance for those of the people who comes every day nonstop to work on time. This we didn't penalize people who were a couple of minutes late, but we enforced the people who were coming on time. So that motivated the rest of the group also to join up. And then the other thing is I expect the HR teams to reward people for the good job that they do. A lot of times you won't know if somebody is failing in the organization. The moment somebody fails to do something, he gets highlighted, he's on the radar. But you as HR personnel have to go out there and look for people who are doing their job, who are producing results, but who are not getting acknowledged. Find them and acknowledge them. Find them and reward them. So if you as an HR person is going after these areas, the morale, the welfare, the recreation of the team, the training of the team, and the enforcements. If you do these five things right, I think you'll be a great HR person.
Very good. Some great ideas you shared there. And my key takeaway from there, I'm sure the participants must have taken note. I like the approach of teams, because in a large organization, you can only have a certain number of supervisors or leaders with the title of a leadership role. Let's say, transport manager, or a manager of the go down, in your case, in your business, or shop manager. But if you can create, like, for example, to a shop, each shift, you have a leader that manages the team. And also, I like the point you mentioned specifically to HR teams about the importance of positive reinforcements in organizations. So, and how much we have to reinforce the good things that are happening around, which often something goes wrong, that becomes a very big deal. And even something small, we have to make a big deal out of it. We don't have to wait for a monthly town hall or a gathering just to
Exactly.
just to talk about it. So, very, very good feedbacks that you shared. So at this moment, I would like to take a question from the audience. So Muhammad Shihab shared this question in the Q&A panel, and he wrote, Ihsan, what would be your advice to the Maldivian girl child, since tomorrow is the day of the girl child, based on your experiences, seeing women colleagues in MNDF and Happy Market? What's your message for the future of the Maldivian girls and the female workforce, I suppose? Yeah.
Good question. So, Mr. Shiab, thank you. I'm a big fan of him, actually. We trained together in a lot of environments so far. I think we have taken sessions together, but it's a good question. Number one, uh, we don't see, personally, I don't see, and none of us should see any difference in our staff because of their gender. My experiences, I will tell you, some of the girls have smoked us on PT sessions. Some of the girls have outrun us in long milers of running. I remember this one girl in the U.S. Marine Corps we trained with, Steph. The backpack we had on our back is more than half of her size. I'm not talking about the weight. It was already nearly 1.5 times her weight, but the physical size of it was twice her too. And I remember she would put that bag, we call the rucksack. She would put it on flat on the ground and lay on top of it, then strap herself, and then ask a couple of us to lift her up. Once we lift her, she's moving. She's moving faster than most of us. And I once asked her, "Those legs, those little legs, how are you moving so fast with such heavy weight?" And then he will tell me, Ihusan, it's not about the weight of the rucksack that you are carrying. It's the weight of the effort and the weight of the ambition that you have that matters. And she would move these things. I had people who were in leadership roles. I know female soldiers who were at war, leading the soldiers. I know their stories. And I would take any one of them to any role in my organization any day, because I don't see a difference, because I have seen them outperform a lot of times. On the day of the day, especially for women and the girls, I will tell you, look, girls out there, you are hope for our nation. Why I say you are hope is because we have not yet cultivated the best that you have to offer to this community, because we give a little bit less opportunities, I think, for you. So I will tell you, uh, the barriers that you face are never faced by any men out there. Okay, so we cannot compare ourselves to you to begin with. But I can tell you, you will always face those barriers. But be the person who crash those barriers and go forward, because you can, because girls have done it, because you girls can achieve it. for this country. And I think if you put your weight after anything, there is no difference between you or any other guy out there. And most of the time, I have noticed that girls have a little bit more patience than us. They are more able to control their anger. They are more able to be part of the team while contributing more. And I have seen a lot of staff which we have in Happy Market are also women, and the amount of time they spend and the results they deliver are exceptional. So girls, the opportunities are out there. uh, don't let anybody tell you that you're not good enough. You are good enough. You're more than good enough. So go after and get them.
Thank you very much. A great message. For the girls out there and in our community. I want to take one more question from the audience. This was posted by Hussein Nahid, and Hussein Nahid said that it was a privilege to work with you, Sansos. I suppose that the gentleman work with you. You are a great leader and outstanding motivator. But one question always brings me whenever I see you. The question why such a self-motivated leader suddenly made the decision to leave one of the most prestigious organization in our country. What's your response you like to give onto this question?
Uh, Good question. Actually, I have always given the diplomatically correct and democratically correct answer to this question, which is I had to spend a lot of time with my family, and that's why I decided. Well, that is obviously a very heavy part of the reason why I did it. Uh, the second reason I will generalize. There is a bunch of other things that went on, but I will generalize. I calculated uh, to see how can I be more effective to this nation, whether being part of the force or being outside. I felt that at that point of time where I made the decision, I had more to offer being outside the force than being in the force. When I was in MNDF, I was never just doing the job that I was tasked to do. For example, my last job in the Maldives National Defense was twofold. One was I was the deputy spokesperson for the military, and the second was I was the deputy commander for the Ordnance Service, which is basically in charge of all the arms, ammunitions, explosives of the military. And in addition to that, I always go out there, get opportunities to train people. I always go out there, get opportunities to talk to students, to inspire them, to get them to be like the people who we aspire them to be. And I had limited opportunities to do that in the force. But I have more of those when I'm outside because obviously you have your regular restrictions in the force. Also, I felt in the Maldives, the forces are not very much appreciated because we are always associated with the ongoing political scenario of the country, which is not fair. As professionals, the soldiers and the policemen of the country, as professionals, are there to do a job that the country needs them to do. We're not working for a particular government. Whoever the government that the public chooses to command us, we obey them until we see nothing wrong. Okay, and my take is we don't deserve a lot of discredit that the institutions are getting these days because I feel it's not fair. And whenever I walked out of my office into the public, there was always a couple of people who would throw those very unreasonable comments at us. And we were disciplined and we were taught to be disciplined, so we can't respond. Now, you are in a scenario where you're getting continuously bombarded and you can't respond. I don't like to be in that scenario. The other thing is, again, the major thing was I thought I could be better useful for the nation being outside than being inside at that point of time. Okay. Thank you for the good comments that Nihad had brought up there.
Yeah, no, I respect your response. I'm sure our audience will respect you, and I agree with you. And I think that when we choose to serve, we have a responsibility to ourselves and to the community, to everybody who is watching us, which is ready to stay professional and to the to stay true to our values. And I think in that sense, if our values are not in line with what we are getting in return, certainly we are free to make our decisions in our career. And I think that is why you made the decision. I mean, certainly knowing who you are from, school days, I totally get it. I respect that. I'm sure everybody who understands will respect it too. And we
Yeah,
are wishing you
and
the
one more
very,
thing to add, Afif.
yeah,
I think I also try to do what I did back in the army or MNDF. I still continue to train people, and I never charge actually because I feel I owe it to the Maldivians to give back because I don't feel 11 years was enough with the training that I got. I should have stayed for 20 years. One more commitment I give to this nation is at any point of time, if the Maldives is an active threat or in a natural disaster where the force is extended, I will always be part of the force. I will join back immediately and be part of the force. I have offered my services to MNDF in the last coronavirus relief effort also. They didn't have to, luckily, call us backups, but we were there prepared.
yeah, very good. Thank you. And I'd like to take one more question from the audience. This time the question came from one of the participants. I think the question was about motivation. Yes, I think I saw the question. Nashat Nasir. Thanks for the question, Nashat. The question is, what is the best motivation tool that can be applied to civil service staff, irrespective of their demotivation due to salary and workload? What's your advice to them? I think the question is more around, even if you have a low salary, how can you stay motivated to serve people? What's your take on that?
Okay. I am very critical of our civil servants at this point of time, and there is reason for it. Um, Number one, let me very clearly tell you guys, civil servants, you're not getting paid enough. Okay, I'll be the first person to admit that we are not getting paid enough given the environment that we have to live in, the challenges that we face in as individuals. So your pay is not enough. So question is, how do you still stay motivated while you're not getting paid enough? Because you have your so many problems to think about, right? I understand. Number one, you have to find a reason more than your salary to be working for civil service. And that reason is you are part of the government of the Republic of Maldives. You are part of the state of the Maldives. You are part of the Republic of Maldives. And for these three very reasons, you need to find that higher sense of duty in you that requires you to do what you are supposed to do, regardless of how much you are getting paid. On the side, we can always negotiate, we can raise our concerns, we can raise our voices about the low pay that we get, but never compromise your duty to this nation. As a civil servant, whether you are a watchkeeping person, whether you are an assistant administrative officer, whether you are a director, or whether you are a permanent secretary in an institution, make sure you are pushing your fair share of responsibility so that the people of the Maldives get their fair of your services from the office that you're holding. You are there not because you are an individual, you are there because you're part of the government organization. So it's not a choice for you not to provide or to provide less quality service or to be less motivated. The choice is how well will you give the services that you are challenged with? And then how well are you able to talk about, and then how well are you able to negotiate the challenges that you are facing? Again, I agree, your pay is not enough, but you can work in an environment, achieve those goals, work for the government, and still voice out and try to find a better day for the civil servants. And I hope and I'm sure we will have better days in future because we are a rich nation.
Thank you very much. Great response there. Son, we have come almost to the end of our conversation with you today. For for all the viewers on Facebook. Luckily, we were able to connect on Facebook halfway through the session. And to all the viewers on Facebook and all the viewers in our Zoom room today, we hope you have enjoyed this conversation. If you have enjoyed this conversation, would you please go to the chat box and write yes, you have enjoyed, and probably share some words of encouragement and thanks to Ihusan for being our guest today. And Ihusan, during his conversation today, highlighted very, very specific comments around what motivates him to do what he does every day, specifically highlight points around how we can develop our personal leadership, growth, the best advice that he received, and also a couple of guidelines and points for all our HR professionals. Ihusan, your closing remark and a message to our community before we end our conversation today.
Okay, I thank you guys for listening. I know this is a late afternoon, and it takes effort to listen to someone as bold as I am and be talking for so long, right? A couple of takeaways, guys, in general, and for the youth that you all are, and for the rest of the group also who are listening. Number one, get a job. If you're not employed right now, there are many opportunities out there. You might not always find the job that you deserve. You might not always find the job that you want. But the day you start spending unemployed, that's the day you become part of someone else's problem. So don't be part of the problem. Go take a job somewhere, some job, any job, and then develop from there. If, let's say, you want to be a manager of a company, let's say for Happy Market, and if you see a job announcement for a laborer, join as a laborer and then prove to the organization that you are supposed to be a manager and they will hire you. I'm telling you, we do it. So don't wait for that opportunities. Number two, identify gaps in your society and find out what you can do to fill those gaps. This could be the gaps in the organization that you're working. This could be some help that people need. This could be something lacking in your island back in wherever you guys are from. Be part of a problem or be part of the solution that answers that problem and that helps to fill that gap. Maybe you have a drug issue. Maybe you have a society that doesn't have any social norms anymore. Maybe you go back and celebrate and eat together, get people out of their houses, get people to see their faces instead of just poking and liking each other on Facebook, right? The third thing is make a plan at your level to make the organization better the next day. At your level, analyze what the company needs, what the country needs, and then plan it and propose that plan to someone who can actually support it. And then maybe we'll be able to see that plan come into action one day. And the last thing I will tell you to do is teach people. Okay, you might not be the best teacher, but you can always be a teacher to someone. So give somebody something new every day. Tell somebody something new every day. Okay. My last takeaway overall is, guys and girls, be part of this great country we are in. Okay. We are part of the Republic of Maldives. They're one of the greatest nations on this earth today. And you have to be proud to be a Maldivian who is part of this country. So do your fair share to make this country a better place tomorrow. Do your fair share to earn the right to be a citizen of the Republic of Maldives. Do your fair share because you are part of the Republic of Maldives. Okay, thank you so much. And I hope you guys have learned something at least and have heard something new today and something that reinforces your energy. And hopefully we will do things, great things better tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you, Son. It has been one of the best conversations, definitely, that I've had recently. Learning about you, some of the stories I've have not heard, but definitely it inspired me to how far you have come. And also, I'm sure all our participants enjoyed the wisdom that you shared around leadership and growth. And obviously, based on a couple of closing remarks you made, one of my favorite remarks you made was identify the gaps in your community and see wherever you can help. And there's always something we can do. And I think we will never get a problem that we will not be able to resolve. And exactly. There's always a solution, but the solution is always within us, within the people, as individual, as a community leaders, as business stakeholders. And I think we have to work together. And you're so right. our nation is one of the best nations in the world, a nation where we should always be proud, regardless of what we do, regardless of opinions that we have, because together only as a nation we can survive, not as individual little communities. So I think that message certainly has a great value in it. To all the viewers and participants on Facebook, in the Zoom room, thank you very much for listening to us. Stay tuned for MAHRP's next session, HR Best Practice Share. We will be updating all of you very, very soon. And Ihusan, thank you so much for giving your time to us and sharing your wisdom that you have learned over the years. I personally wish you, and on behalf of MAHRP's Executive Committee, we wish you very well to your team, and may God bless all of us. Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the afternoon,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.